So, hello, Dee Ditch, welcome, beautiful, magical witches, wizards, and magical beings to this first episode in the series of Cauldron Conversations, where we gather around with other practitioners to share their magic. So, without further ado, I'd love to welcome my first guest, Crystal, the Cottage Witch. Welcome, Crystal. Thanks so much. We will be a bit real with you here, and we had a little bit of technical difficulty yesterday, so we did kind of do a recording of this, but the gremlins got in, so we're sorting it back out now. But we're introducing the beautiful Crystal, the Cottage Witch here. Welcome, Crystal. Thanks so much for coming on to the program or
Hi,
the series.
Hazel. Thank you so much for having me again.
No, thank you, and I'm sorry again. Apologies for the whatever happened there yesterday, but thanks so much for coming on, and I can't wait for you to share some things with the beautiful magical beings that are going to find this podcast or this video, whichever it may be. You can also catch Crystal over on YouTube on her channel, Crystal the Cottage Witch. She has some amazing, amazing, powerful information there if you'd like to go over and expand your horizons. Um, so yeah, Crystal, you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit and maybe tell us a little bit of how you found your path onto your witchcraft and your spirituality.
Yeah, so the first time you're hearing my voice or seeing my face, if you're watching the video, my name is Crystal, the Cottage Witch. I've been a practicing witch and occult practices and magical practice for about 28 years now in total. So a while. It's been basically all my life that I've been on this journey. And we still keep going. It doesn't matter how many years that you've been in the practice. It's something that you will always keep learning something from, which I find beautiful because that means there's no glass ceiling. You could always expand, and I think that's beautiful. I first started.
No, I was just going to say, I totally agree. I love that we are forever expanding and growing and that
Mhm.
there's no limit to it because I'm sure it would get pretty boring if we just got stuck in the same role. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Crystal.
So, my journey into this beautiful magic practice started when I was very, very, very little. I think most people can relate when you're young, you're in the woods and you're playing in the mud and you're making all your potions and you just want to be free and frolic. It doesn't matter, sometimes how old you are. Sometimes I still do that. I'm a grown woman, but whatever.
Hmm.
But my father is very much into bushcrafting. He is into survival. That side of the family, they are hunters, but when my dad goes hunting, he takes everything from the animal and he only gets what he knows he's going to eat. And we also had a garden, so we would grow our own food and we would go out into the woods and he would teach me about plant identification when I was really, really, really little. In case we were in the
Wow.
woods and he was like, okay, if you have a tummy ache, this is what you eat. If you have a boo boo, we have to find this tree and get the sap from this tree. This is how you could transport fire. If you have food, this is what you could use to season this. This you want to stay away from. This is poison. So I was very, very, very lucky that young to be able to kind of get into that kind of herbalist aspect of things and understanding that there's so much that trees have to offer and plants and shrubs besides just looking pretty. So I thought that
Hmm.
was really, really cool. The unconventional part of what really pushed forward my practice is from when I was about 7.5. My mother and I became homeless. And we were
Right.
homeless from that time until when I was about 19 or so. Um, because we were bouncing around from different shelters, sometimes we would sleep outside, sometimes we would stay with family members. We were always bouncing around, so it was really hard for me to get to school. I stayed back a few times because of that, missing so much school. And I always felt so stupid because of it, even though I know it's not my fault. But most of the places that we would normally ride buses all night to stay warm if we couldn't get into any place. But during the day, we would always be at a public library because libraries are open all day and you could stay there for as long as you wanted. My mom, um, she she had some mental health issues. So like I was always the parent and she was always the kid, didn't matter like how old I was, but she would always be in one room where they would have like the computers and they had like the big box TV to like watch movies before you rent them. So she would,
Right.
be watching movies.
Yeah.
And then right next to there was the reference section. So this is probably showing my age, but back then books on witchcraft you could not take out of the library. They had to stay
Oh,
in the library for reference, at least here in New England, or I'm not sure if every part of the United States had it, but in New England, you could not take out any books on witchcraft. They're all reference. So the
hey.
first, it's weird, isn't it? Like,
I was going to say, why do you? I didn't want to interrupt your story
no,
or the
you're fine.
flow there. I was just wondering, why do you think that maybe they thought people will do spells with
I don't know. It was like
it?
the early 90s, so it was just after
Okay.
the Satanic Panic. So
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering if that might be part
Played
of it.
into it.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very,
Hmm.
very, I didn't think anything of it because I was just a kid. So, but
Yeah.
we couldn't
Yeah.
take any of the books out, so I couldn't bring them home. But the first book that really like drew me into everything was a book about the Fae and
Right.
elementals and land spirits, which really funny. I didn't even think about, I know this is our second recording of this, but years ago, like maybe like 14 years ago, I decided to visit that library with a friend of mine at the time. I was just so drawn to go back to that specific library where I got this book and they were having a sale. And I was
Right.
able to buy the same exact book that I would go and reference all the time as a kid for like $1.10. And I still have it.
Wow.
It still has the reference sticker on the side and
Oh,
everything. And I was like,
wow.
oh,
That is so powerful. That book was meant to come to you, even if it
yeah.
was all them years later, like for you to actually own. That's amazing.
I know. I love it. I love it so much. It makes me so happy because it's so old looking. It's a hardcover, but it has the paper. So it still has like that crinkle sound that just brings back that nostalgia for me. Oh, but that book, I think everyone when they were younger, they would like maybe leave out like little stick off. Well, I would at least leave like stick offerings or piles of leaves for like, these are for like the stick people in the woods when you don't know anything
Yeah.
about the Fae. So I
Hmm.
would do that all the time because I'm very much nature based. So that book kind of opened up a gateway that there is way more that most people can't see. Like there
Hmm.
there was so much more to this world besides like what I thought was my imagination or what I
Hmm.
thought was me just, playing around outside. And as a kid, I would always dress up as a witch for Halloween. I had a Halloween costume that I would never take off. It was this very classic. I have a photo of it. I can email it to you. I would wear it everywhere. There's a picture of me in a parking lot. We were going to McDonald's and it's like in the middle of summer and I'm dressed up. But,
It's Halloween all year round.
oh, it is.
Samhain, I should say, all year round.
Oh, yeah, totally is. And after I found the fairy book, I started to look into like more things that were connected to that. So back then, it was very predominantly like Wicca based. So all
Right.
the information that I was finding, it was like, Gerald Gardner, Buckham, like everything
Hmm.
was very much Wicca. So to
Hmm.
me, I thought like, Wicca was being a witch and that was it. There was no other, other ways to be a
Plants.
witch. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So there was a little fountain, like a wishing fountain, in like the main library that we would go to. And people would throw like pennies and quarters in there. So I would take the pennies and the quarters out of the wishing fountain so I could pay for the copy machine to make copies of the pages so I wouldn't have to write everything down, which I know was bad, but I was a kid. But just
Ah, yeah, but
because,
still, it would have taken you too long to try and write all that information down. Like, so, and I'm sure whatever you took went back in
yeah, that's
tenfold.
true. That's true. Well, I still every day, like to now, I still whenever I see a wishing fountain, I always throw something in there because I think it's like eternal guilt. But I would
You're
write things down
resolved.
too.
You're resolved of your guilt.
Thank you, thank you. Because I was like, I'm taking people's wishes. Like when I was a teenager, I was like, oh my gosh, all these kids like probably wish for all these things, and I took all their wishes to learn about witchcraft.
Well, maybe you just enhanced their wishes when you think about it.
That's a good point, because then you're doing
Yeah,
something, you're making the
yeah,
action.
yeah. It's actually after going into somebody's hands that will actually do something about it instead of just lying there.
No, that's a good point. I just remember my
Yeah.
thought process when it finally hit me when I mentioned it to somebody, and they're like, "So you stole kids' wishes?" And I was like, "Oh no, I did."
But that's just somebody's perspective on it. Again, there's another perspective. You actually made their wishes come true in one way or another for them. Sorry for
Oh,
interrupting you there,
no,
Crystal.
no,
I
you're
just
fine. No, you're fine. I like the flow of everything. But I would write things down too. So like I would have like the paper, they would have paper and they would have like the little pencils that look like the lottery pencils. They're like little tiny
little
pencils.
tiny ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would like write down everything, and thankfully my father kept everything because we were bouncing all over. My
Yeah.
father remarried and whatnot, but um he would hold all my stuff, and it was just really cool looking back and seeing like little kid handwriting talking about like Agrippa and all that stuff like from way back in the day, because everything was so fascinating to me. I was like, there's so much more like to everything, and everything that I've always felt inside me. I didn't even know this existed. So
Hmm.
seeing all these books on everything, like my thoughts that I thought were just like me playing or imagination or like fantasy or different things that I would just have like a clear cognizance and a clear sentence about just knowing or just feeling that this was correct, and then seeing it verified in a book published before I was born was just it felt like coming home. I didn't
Hmm.
physically have a home, but it felt like I was coming into something that, like, no matter what happened, I could always bring with me, and that home was in me. That sounds so corny.
No,
Do you know what
wow,
I
it
mean?
sounds so powerful. Yeah, that you're finally coming home to you and reigniting, reactivating parts of yourself that you've obviously done in past lives as well. Like you've been a healer there as well and used the knowledge of your herbs, of your potions, of whatever it may be to help people. Um, so yeah, no, it's a lovely magical way of putting it, and it's actually again sparking that that magic is real, and that we are the magic and we help create it.
I find that beautiful. Life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. We create our paths, we create everything. We can move a majority of obstacles in our lives just by taking up the space for ourselves. We have this space. We need to, some of us, it's a lot harder than others. But once you realize that it is okay for you to take up space for yourself and step into everything that you are, I feel like that is more eye opening to people, because sometimes we
Hmm.
need external validation depending on circumstances, how we feel about ourselves, or if we were in relationships to make us feel lesser than ourselves, we kind of always seek that external validation. But it's that reminder that you are powerful, you are magical, you have so much inside of you, you are made of all the elements, you are made of this universe, you are made of this world, you are made of other worlds, and you are a beautiful living embodiment of magic. Take up that space that your magic gives you and project it out to the world. You don't need anyone else to validate. I got sassy there. Sorry. I was like doing the waving fingers.
No, it does. It deserved a bit of sassiness. It totally did, and I'm sure anybody that's listening to this can totally agree and understand. Crystal, especially if they've been listening to this podcast a while. I'm always saying, be yourself. There's
Mm-hmm.
nobody like you in the world. Like you said, we're all made up of this amazing magical stuff, and we're all here to share it with the world. And just stepping into, like you said, holding space and reclaiming it for yourself. And again, I just wanted to pick up as well on what you were saying about realizing that there was no gap between the physical and the magical. And we can go back again to when religion came in and the distorted masculine, divine masculine took over. Women, especially women, were healers, were midwives, were in places of power in villages, in communities, and that was seen as a threat. And then if we go back even further, linking in with the Celtic mythology, and before the religion came over to this island, we and I'll touch on it in a moment, but before the religion took over, we knew that there was no separation between the mind, the body, and the soul, between the upper, um, the middle, and the lower worlds, the three cauldrons. And even to this day, although a lot of the ways have been taken away, they are starting to come back a lot as well. But I will say that even the people that work here and up in the north end of the country, if they are building roads or anything that is near a fairy mount,
They
they'll
go
build
around it, right?
they'll build around it. So they still believe and they know and they can feel that the fae is there. If we went further back to the to a day Danu, which was the one of the um gods and goddesses that ruled this land before they had to go underground,
I have my
which
giant Danu statue
eventually,
next to me.
wow, wow, which eventually did turn into the Fae. So they are still there. There is a core, there is an underground, there is other realms that is just not seen right now with our light spectrum.
Hmm.
Everything we see is on a light spectrum and also on a frequency. So when we're tapped into different frequencies, we can connect into the other realms as well and embody that even more. So yeah, just agreeing with everything you were saying there and adding to it there, Crystal. And would you say adding into that some of the deities or gods, goddesses that you work with, maybe on in your practice, like some of the main ones?
Yeah, so like I said, the first thing that brought me into everything was the Fae. That was like my first step into everything because I'm very nature based.
Mm-hmm.
After that, there is just one main deity that I've worked through with everything throughout the years that has always remained a constant, and that's Keranos. Very
Mm-hmm.
nature based, the Lord of the wild and primal energy and fertility, and the Lord of the hunt. And he is the main one that I work with without pause, without any type of stop in all
Mm-hmm.
the years that I've been doing this. I think I first started working with him when I was like, after I did my year and a day study, because like I said, I had started off as Wiccan and I was Wiccan for a few years.
Okay.
And it was after I did my initiation where I started like really trying to figure out, because it was very prominent for you to pick the deity to work with,
Okay.
so
Right.
but I always felt drawn to him when I was like
Did you
seeing his
notice?
pictures. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wanted to ask as well, Crystal, was there any ways and signs that you seen that he was starting to want to work with you? Because I noticed that a lot of times when I'm starting to work with deities, they'll be coming in through different kind of signs and stuff.
Yeah, so for me, the first thing that I noticed were I would find antler sheds more than anybody else when I was out in the woods. And my dad would always be very excited because, like I said, he was a hunter, so he
Right.
would use
Yeah.
that stuff. So he would make sewing
Yeah.
needles and stuff out of it, or like
Wow.
stuff for the leather. Really cool, very talented man. But I would never want to give up the antler sheds. And he's all like, "Well, if you
Hmm.
leave them, the animals can eat them. They could, everything recycles, everything comes back." He's
Yeah.
not witchy, he's not pagan, he's not spiritual like that, but he fits the category of like a
Yeah.
very like pagan lifestyle. But
Hmm.
I would still take the antler sheds and I would make like little shrines out of them, when I was
Wow.
really, really
Yeah.
little. And then once I was like in the woods and going through things, I would find all these antler sheds and I was like, oh my gosh, wait, I'm reading up on this deity. he is the horned god. So that's when I started to look into it more. So then I started being kind of like semi-specific before I
Hmm.
realized like how specific you need to be to look for certain signs. So
Yeah.
for me, I would just be like, okay, you know, within a week, I want to be able to find 2 antler sheds. This is how I'm going to be able to know. And even out of
Yeah.
rut season, I would still find the antler sheds.
Wow.
Then I would like ask for, okay, I want to find moss tops. We don't have like Spanish moss in my area. Other parts of the states do, but we have like big like lichen tufts and just regular like golden moss. So I would just find
Right.
tufts of those, and it would be like a little path like on the woods, just one
Wow.
after another. And other times when I
Wow.
wouldn't be, you know, looking for it, I would still find it. So I was
Hmm.
kind of like, okay, you know, if you look for a yellow car, you're going to find a yellow car no matter what. So then I'll be like, okay, I
Yeah.
want to find a yellow feather. And then I would
Right.
find, I forgot the name of the bird, but it was like a bright yellow and black feather. And I was like, okay,
Wow.
these are my signs
Yeah.
for everything. So, but I did that
Wow.
very young, very young.
That's so powerful, and it's such a good reminder for anybody listening now, whether they're starting their practice or whether they're deep into the rabbit hole right now of their journey. It's a great reminder to just ask for signs or to look at the signs and then link up the dots. Oh, yeah, maybe I was wanting to work with this god or goddess or deity, and maybe I am starting to see all of the signs that are linked with it, or some of the foods that is linked with it, or some of the colors or whatever it may be, like, So yeah, it's really powerful, it's really magical as well, and it's confirmation from the universe. Sorry, I don't know why I said it like that. Universe that
You're picking
that
up on
really
my
came out
accent.
Irish. Universe. The universe giving you confirmation. And that actually rolls nice into I wanted to ask you as well. When did you decide to leave the Wicca and go down your own path? Because we know Wicca is a religion, even though it's an amazing religion, it's embracing all of these tools, connecting with nature, with the gods and goddesses. Um, but it's still structured in a
Yeah.
way, and it's still kind of I don't want to say telling you what to do, but there's certain specific steps and practices to
Guidelines.
rituals that need to be followed and stuff like that. Whereas, say, an eclectic witch can take from different practices and make up her own path. It doesn't need to be really high ceremonial magic. It doesn't need to be this or that. It can be whatever it is to her. And again, each practitioner, all of their paths is unique to them, and there is no right or wrong one. But I thought that would be just an interesting question, and I'd love to know how you made that switch.
Yeah, I think I might have been maybe 14 or 15. I remember I was like fresh into high school when
Right,
I did that switch, because before I had some teachers before then, and they were very much everything has to be done by the book. If you're not doing it by the book, then it is wrong. No matter what
right,
you feel, what you think, like the book is a book for a reason. And that was like
right.
drilled into me because I was so young working with these teachers. I was always the
Yeah.
youngest in my class, and normally they ask for like parents' permission, but like I said with my mom, you know what I mean? She would give permission for everything. So
Hmm.
but I was never put in dangerous situations or anything like that. But it was
Yeah.
very. This doesn't go for all like
No,
teachers and mentors or anything
this
like
is just
that.
your personal experience
Yeah,
here,
exactly.
Crystal. Yeah, yeah.
So this isn't like a blanket term for all, but they seem to have taken advantage of the fact that I was very young and
Hmm.
very eager to learn, that
Hmm.
they were trying to put off their opinion on things as fact, which is like
Hmm.
if you ever stumble across my YouTube, almost in every video, I don't give my opinion on things unless I'm telling you it's my opinion on something, or if my experience, because I want you to make your own practice. I want to help inspire you. I want you to be able to take with whatever information and find in a way to fit your practice, because your practice is going to be different than mine. And
Hmm.
I don't I don't need to have that opinion on what I think your craft should look like, because it is tailor made to you. for me, it was a lot of that, like, well, you did this wrong from the book. You didn't do this right from the book. All these different paths. And I had recently gotten into a tarot reading group when I was 14. I think you either had to be 16 or 18 to be part
Right.
of like the tarot book, well, the tarot club and like their witch book club and stuff. But I was there all the time, and they knew I was already, you know, in the practice at that point, so I
Yeah.
was able to join. And
Yeah.
they weren't Wiccan. There were some people that
Right.
were in the group, but the people who owned the store, they weren't Wiccan.
Right.
They were Hermetic.
Right.
And
Is that
what was
part of
something
the
else?
Golden Dawn?
Yeah, they
Um,
did have, yeah,
yeah.
for them. But there was someone else who was something, I can't fully remember what they were, because they weren't in a lot of classes, but they weren't Wiccan either. I can't
Right.
remember what their, it wasn't like Rosicrucian or something like that, but it was something random, but it was like another part of witchcraft, and I never heard of that
Right.
because I just thought everything was Wicca and that was it. So
Right.
then I
Right.
had to like pick their brains, and I was like, there's more to this. There's more to this. I've been with 3 teachers so far. I never knew that there was anything more because, you know, I would get my reading materials from them. I can't afford to buy
Yeah.
books. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so it just opened up my mind, and I was kind of like, wow, there is so much more than this. And that was like over 20 something years ago. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it just threw
Wow.
me for such a loop when I was like, okay, so there is technically like guidelines like ethic, moral, or poisonous ingredients, fire safety,
Yeah.
like right
Totally.
or wrong ways to do your practice.
Yeah.
But for when you're doing something that is specific to you, there is within those very small guidelines, there is a no right or wrong way because that's what's going
Hmm.
to work for you. And no one is going to know better what works for you other than you, even if we don't know how to listen to ourselves.
Hmm.
Something else on the external might remind us. So that's when I kind of figured out once I had all these other things, because to me, everything with Wicca, while it is still a beautiful religion and it is a beautiful practice, that's what it is. It is a religion.
Yeah.
And um, uh, for me, it was too much of a structure, and some of the reads and the rules they didn't fully make sense to me. So when I would try to question them, it was always made it seem like I was like doing a big no no, and I wasn't meant to be a witch and all
That's
this
the kind of,
stuff.
yeah, I'm kind of getting like some kind of gatekeeper vibes, if I'm being honest, and I've came
Yeah.
across that myself with Reiki masters over the years. I've seen some Reiki masters that want to make an extra level when there's no need for an extra level. I
Mm,
see some of them charging through the roof when there's no need to be charging through the roof. I know fair enough money is an exchange of energy. I'm not saying don't charge nothing, but there's there's like a balance and a limit, and I kind of felt a bit of gatekeeping vibes from that as well, when there's actually no need for any of that to be gatekeeping vibes when it's in that community. I know Reiki's a closed practice, and I know there's certain things that shouldn't be shown and stuff like that, but just when it's coming to people that are wanting to learn and wanting to study, and they're in whatever it may be, if it's in Wicca, if it's in Reiki, if it's in Satanism, because that's just a left hand path as well. Like, I think gatekeeping or right hand path, I'm not quite sure. I think the middle path is the best, but yeah, the gatekeeping I feel needs to be a bit loosened a little bit. And like you said, it's okay to have guidelines, especially for things that we need them. But when you're crafting and wielding something together of your intention for something that's personal and meaning to you, I think getting a bit of encouragement goes a lot further,
oh yeah, exactly. It
and
definitely
having an
does.
open mind as well. But like you said, it is beautiful. I'm not putting Wicca down in any way, shape, or
No, not
form.
at all.
If anybody's Wicca, congratulations, and I hope you continue to deepen your practice. Just with myself, even a lot of my listeners as well are healing a lot also from religious trauma. Myself, coming from Ireland in this incarnation, we do know what happens with the Catholic Church and the institutions over here. So I feel like you were saying, just connecting to you and connecting to your intuition and what's working for you, and
Mm-hmm.
going by some guidelines, but understanding that you have the power to create your own and you don't need validation or
No,
confirmation
exactly.
from others when it comes to your craft.
Just yourself. Just yourself, because you're gonna know what's right, even if you're like, I don't know what's right. That's why I'm asking the cards. That's why I'm casting my bones or whatever. It's
Totally,
still within you. You know what I mean? Other things may
totally,
tell you. It's
totally.
just, yeah, sometimes you'll see like someone will post a spell and they'll be
Hmm.
like, oh, you should have used a yellow candle for this. Yellow is blah, 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 blah. And just basically saying that they did everything wrong. You don't know what yellow means to that person. You know, like everyone in the States, I feel, thinks that green is universal for like prosperity because our money is green.
Green, yeah.
You
Well,
know?
yeah, it can be also healing as well. Like green is a great color for healing.
Oh, no, that one it is. But just thinking money is just tied
Yeah,
to a green
money is just
candle,
green. Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
no, totally, totally. Yeah, well, like you could use maybe a brown,
Yeah,
maybe an
some money
orange, because
red.
our money over here is mostly, well, the notes, the bigger notes are orange. Some of them are blue. Some of them are
Oh, that's
pink.
pretty.
Yeah, they are. They're all different colors. It kind of looks like Monopoly money now, I will say, since they went into the euro. But before we went into the euro, we did have Irish punts, and no, actually, they weren't better. They had nuns and priests' faces on the front of them. When I think about it,
Really?
yeah. Oh my God,
Oh, that's
Crystal, I'll
interesting.
send you. I'll look it up later and send you a screenshot that the old money had on it. Yeah, but yeah, totally. I agree with what you're saying. It's different to everyone. Candle colours is different. There's no right or wrong way to do a spell. If somebody's putting up a spell, they should be just putting up for a guideline.
Yeah, that's what I
You
do. I've
know.
done a few of them like that where I'm like, I'm using this because this is what this means to me. You could use
Hmm.
whatever. But if you're wondering why I'm using this specific color, this is what the color correspondence means to me. So,
Yeah, totally. Well, I feel like that's the way teaching should be done, Crystal, because then, like, if people want to come and ask you a question, especially if you're on the beginning, not even if you're deep into your practice and you want confirmation or you want a little extra advice and you ask for it, that's when you can be like, well, this is what I'd do, or this is what I've tried, and this is what I've worked. But you know, there's the bit of information. You go and wield what you want with that. I'm not
exactly.
telling you to do this and then do that, and follow all of these bleeding steps, So yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think more encouragement. Again, I feel like this boils down to the witch wounds that's in the collective of women cutting each other down instead of helping lift each other up.
We're
And
not
realize
competition.
how much more powerful are we if we lift each other up and we're not in competition with each other? Understand where this competition came from, where this jealousy or needs to compare ourselves to each other came from. We shouldn't be comparing ourselves to anyone. Again, like we,
Mm-mm.
we said at the start, we're all unique. We all have something to bring. We've all been through different things in our life. We're not doing the law of comparison here. So let's just step into, I know there's no law of uniqueness, but if there was, let's step into the law of uniqueness. But yeah, no, that's amazing. That is amazing. Thanks so much, Crystal, for answering that. And could I also ask you, how do you feel that your witchcraft has helped you to heal, grow, expand, transform your life?
So, like I was saying earlier, I grew up homeless and
Hmm.
everything that witchcraft stood for and represented, as corny as it sounds.
I
it
also wanted to apologise for that happening to you as well earlier, Crystal, but I didn't want to interrupt your story. I'm sorry you had to go
No,
through
you're
that,
fine.
but I know you probably wouldn't take it back because it's after making you
No,
who you are today.
no, I would never go back. I would go through everything that I went through, everything the same, because I could have become a completely different person. And I love who I am now. I may have bad days where, I might be sad and might not enjoy my company, which happens when we're
Everybody
lonely.
does.
But
Everybody has
afterwards,
them.
yeah. So that's what I kind of think about. And I'll be like, you know what? I'm allowed to feel this. When I start thinking my feelings and putting myself in that loop, that's when I'm like, okay, go put your feet in some dirt somewhere, replant yourself, get
Yeah.
over it. Come on, think you're strong. You went through all this. You could get through a sad day. I wouldn't go do anything different of everything that I've gone through in my life. I wouldn't do a single thing different. I wouldn't even replace one bad day with one good day or one good day with one bad day. I would do everything exactly the same because every lesson that I have learned, and some of them have been terrible and some of them have been amazing, but now I really know the spectrum of how every emotion feels. And some people
Hmm.
can't feel those, as,
Yeah.
as terrible grief is, as terrible, sadness is, or
Joy.
poverty.
Yeah.
I know what that feels like now. And some
Hmm.
people may never feel that. And I feel like
Yeah.
I always give back to like homeless shelters or everything like that. I always wore my clothes, they get donated to some of
Yeah.
the shelters that help me out that I stayed at. I don't sell my
Well,
stuff or anything like that. I always
yeah.
donate for me because
Yeah.
like I can relate to being in their shoes as much as I
Yeah.
can because each
Yeah.
circumstance is different. But for me, going through understanding and learning witchcraft felt like I had something that no matter what, nobody could take away from me, and that it was completely fine for me to be myself. I am very different than both sides of my family. Um, I only knew my mom's immediate side of her family, but there was
Hmm.
always these stories, which we might get to talk on later, which I just found some things really recently, which I find interesting. But their side, they would always not like try to hide me or shun me. I would color my
Hmm.
hair with markers if I couldn't dye my hair. I would always be playing with like sticks, or I'd be reading something or trying to understand something a little bit more or dress different just because I wanted to
Hmm.
wear what I wanted to wear with the very few clothes that I did. And then
Hmm.
on my father's side, neither side would change me, but they were more religious, very much religious. My dad was very more laid back with me and wanted me to make my own choices for things because he had
Hmm.
a lot of stuff imposed on him. But like especially my older relatives, whenever I would just do anything that just shows me my spookiness, because I'm a paranormal investigator, so
Yeah.
I would go to the cemetery that was like right behind my father's house in the middle of the night and clean the headstones, all that type of stuff, like pick up the litter. And they'll be like, oh, she's getting ready for a theater project, that's why she acts the way that she does, and like all these weird excuses for me. But I was like, I don't need an excuse for anyone to like be who I am. I'm not going to be offended by something that isn't offensive. It's not offensive to be yourself. And I feel
Hmm.
like some people kind of use it as an insult and throw the things that make you in your face to try and make it offensive, that way to make you smaller, even without
Yeah.
like in a manipulative way, but because maybe you are too big to be around them. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. Well, like when you think about it, especially the older generation, they've been so conditioned by society standards, by what's right, what's wrong, what the outward appearance looks like. And again, anybody that's listening to this podcast, they know I'm always saying, anytime I connect with somebody, I connect with their energy straight away. You could be the most beautiful person on the outside and you have a horrible soul and personality. And then that's not going to get you far in life at all. So just be yourself, mask off, show it to the world. We are here to be weird. We're here to be quirky. We're here to be ourselves. We're in a different timeline now. I don't know if you've ever went down the galactic rabbit hole yet, Crystal, but the star seeds, like myself, that come in and incarnate in here after being in different planets, we do bring a different frequency to the earth. And it can feel a bit weird sometimes to people because they're feeling the higher frequency and getting activated by just being in the presence of us being our uniqueness and throwing that out to the world. And again, I think it's really important that you don't let people bait you down and make you stand back in some sort of box
Nope.
or make you not express who you want to be.
Nope. A lot of people use their own skin as a mask to hide the
Yeah.
soul within. And some
Mm-hmm.
people use their skin to express their identity, whatnot. Doesn't matter what color it is,
Yeah,
whatever gender your skin is. People just use all of that sometimes as a mask to hide
yeah,
themselves. And, some people do it to hide because they're a bad person. Other people, just try to hide within themselves because they were made to feel different. They were made to feel
yeah.
small, but inside of them is just such a beautiful soul that the
Mm-hmm.
world needs to see. And I feel like the first thing you can see it is the sparkle in their eyes.
Eyes. Yeah, the eyes are the window to the soul. They
Mm-hmm.
just are, and that's like anytime I'm looking at somebody or connected with them, like that's what I'm looking at straight away. I know as humans we do focus on appearance, but that's the last thing that we see. And at the end of the day, it's not everything.
Nope.
It's really not. But like you were saying, Crystal, like, if they're wearing the mask for security, fair enough. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But still try and chip away at letting your true self out to the world. I mean, you don't have to put something on every day if
No,
if that's what
exactly.
if that's why you're doing it. But if you're doing it because you want to do it and you're feeling good, you go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. Whatever makes you feel good, whatever makes you you. But yeah, it's just really letting the world see you and be yourself in it because yeah, there is so many ways of boxes that were made to fit into.
Yeah. There's
Um
many ways to be human, you know?
yeah.
It's
I
very
think
layered.
as well social media with the younger generation is like made it harder for them, like because they think they need to have certain standards and they need to do this
Mm-hmm.
and they need to do that. But again, connecting with their selves, their higher self, and inwards, like will help so much with their confidence and just sharing their uniqueness because we're not here to be the same.
No, we're not whatsoever. Some people believe that we're made to fit in. And
Yeah,
I don't, I think everyone kind of makes their own path. Everyone brings something completely different and beautiful to this world, to this life, to the immediate people. If they could reach a bigger crowd, that's awesome too. Everyone
yeah.
brings something that makes them unique and special, and that what makes them them. And it is so beautiful, and it is way too beautiful to be smushed down and made for someone to feel little, or made to feel like they're doing something wrong, or just something where they can't express themselves in any way, shape, or form, as long as they're not like hurting somebody. kind of deal with an
Totally.
expression.
Totally. As long as you're not doing any harm to yourself or others, go for it. Express yourself how you want. We need a bit more of that in the world. There's always
Hmm.
room for that in the world. That's what the world is here for. To make all the uniqueness, let it be made up together. Um, that's so powerful. And would you say that there's maybe any misconceptions about witchcraft or witches that you'd want to clear up, Crystal? Because I
Oh,
know
there's
there's a lot going around since back in the day. Um, I'm nearly sure it was either a king or a priest that made up one of the books of how to spot a witch.
oh yeah, and
When
the
when the
Magnus
witch
Maricarum
hunt
too.
was going on. Yeah, yeah. So it kind of that's how many years of conditioning right there. It's a good few hundred.
Yeah, nope, and it's gone back even further in different aspects of it, but
Hmm.
more it was more celebrated before. I
Yeah.
think a lot of the stuff that it goes like on two wavelengths for me and my personal experience. I'm sure there's so many out there who have completely different experiences. I could only speak to my experience, what I've had.
Hmm.
It doesn't make any other them less valid. But for me, the people that I run into that discover I'm a witch, they either do, well, actually one of five things. One, they automatically assume again that like I'm Wiccan, which I'm not. That's totally fine for me, and it's totally fine for people who are Wiccan. So that's
Yeah.
what the first thing that they think of when they're like, "Oh, you're a witch or a Wiccan and whatnot." And I'm like, "I'm no longer Wicca, but if you want to Wiccan, but if you want to talk about it, I've been in the life for quite a few years as a Wiccan. I'd
Yeah.
love to talk to you about it and love to hear your experiences with it." Other
Yeah.
people They assume that it's all like devil worship and everything else like that. There are, some witches who work with the devil or Satan or Lucifer or Baphomet, or some work with like the AOR's Goetia, and some work with Shem angels with the AOR Goetia. So it's different than what people think it is, but that's not my practice, but there are, some people who do that. So for them it is true in a sense, but not really. Another one is like, magic is fake, magic isn't real, it's all the placebo effect, and or it's the nocebo effect if you think you've been cursed, which is the opposite of the placebo effect. Where like they don't think, they just think magic is us living in a fantasy world, and we think we're Harry Potter,
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
that a
Yeah.
lot, and it's very hard to explain to some people if they're not open for any discussion on it. They just want to plant their opinion on top of you and try to find any way to make you fit that opinion of you without
Yeah.
hearing anything. So
Yeah.
that happens with people in haunted houses too, for some of the ones that I go to.
Right.
Where
What happens with them, Crystal? Oh yeah,
so
we also want to mention as well that Crystal's also a paranormal investigator on the side. Lots going on. This witch has a lot of cauldrons turning.
does like clown college count too as something, and like roller derby?
Everything counts.
I can make you some cool balloon animals, some mediocre balloon animals, but I can make you some balloon
Wow.
animals. But for some people, when their houses are, they reach out because they believe their home is haunted. We
Right.
listen to everybody, and we don't try to give an opinion any which way. I mentioned it before in the last one, but I got deleted. Please always check your carbon monoxide detectors, because they fit a lot of cases where people feel anxious, where they feel like they're being watched, they have pressure on them. Their animals will react. They will see things out the corner of their eye. And when we get there, there might have been another group that was there and been like, this is severely haunted, you needed to be blessed, or you needed to be cleansed. So I'll come there to do a cleanse. And then I'll be like, did you guys check this carbon monoxide leak? If that went on, that could have seriously hurt somebody.
Yeah, it's
And
very dangerous,
after
isn't
it
it?
was, yes, you could die or be
Yeah.
very poisoned from it.
And you can't even smell it, like, because
No,
there's no smell off it.
there's no
Yeah.
smell. So make sure
Yeah.
all those are checked. But there
And we
are
were
some,
saying they cause
yeah, hallucinations.
hallucinations.
Yeah.
I was going to say
So
hallucinogenic, sorry. Hallucination.
yeah, hallucinations, and it'll affect the animals too. So like if you think you're seeing something and the animal is reacting to it, it could be carbon monoxide. So just please make sure you're all being safe. I know that's never discussed in like ghost shows or anything else like that,
Yeah,
because it's all sensationalized, but to be safe, for the realness of it, please make sure you are checking that. But we'll go to
right.
some people's houses, and we'll inspect everything, and we find out that there is nothing that fully constitutes a haunting. It could be very much more mundane, or the person is going through like a spiritual psychosis of sorts, and
Right.
to them everything is real, even if we're trying to let them know like, this isn't this, we could give you this to make you feel better, but everything that we have found is showing X, Y, and Z. So let's try changing X, Y, and Z and see if it's still happening, that to help your mental health, help everything, help the children in the home, whatever. But they're still dead set, no matter what you find, that there is something there, and they don't want to listen to you.
Right.
It's like that
Yeah.
same type of opinion for both things, talking about witchcraft and the paranormal.
So probably a bit of cognitive dissonance, is that
Oh
what
yeah,
it's
cognitive
called?
dissonance,
Yeah. So it's
completely.
coming up against their belief system, and that's what they want to believe. But um, yeah, no, I'm glad that you give them all of the help and all of the options they need. Like, I'm sure it's very hard for anybody that's going through eh, anything, any situations like that. And, they kind of want to get out of it, but their mind and their subconscious or whatever it may be is telling them something else. So I am sending them energy and blessings And I hope that they do move on from that state and not be caught in that loop, because it's
It's
kind of, it sounds a bit like when you loop thoughts and you go
oh, it
through different
is.
loops. It's kind of like that, but it's obviously manifesting into something physical for them,
Yeah.
in their house or their home, wherever it is. Because I feel like the lions as well, especially the last few years, I feel like, especially around Samhain, the veil isn't going back to fullness anymore. I feel like the
No.
veil is just keep getting thinner and thinner every year.
Yeah.
So
It feels like it's less, like during Beltane, you could feel it. Like right now, you could feel the veil, but it just
yeah,
feels like it's more stretched out and like
loose,
open. Yeah.
yeah,
Versus like
lighter or something. I
when
did,
there's like
yeah,
the barrier where you could feel like the edges of it. It's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, definitely. Um, so like I know that that could probably play into it as well, especially into like the real hauntings
No, it
that you
totally can.
find, you know what I mean, when there
No,
is
yeah.
actually something going on, or there is a spirit that hasn't crossed over. Because let's face it, in the last few years, the way the world has been, there has been a lot of death. You know what I mean? I don't think Death Witches get enough um
No.
credit either for helping with the work that they do as well.
Or
Because
death doulas as well.
death doulas as well, yeah, totally, like being there with somebody for the last um breaths out of this dimension into the next. It's a really powerful thing. And I know myself, like, when somebody is close, even people that aren't close to me, but if they're around the vicinity, like I can feel when there's death near. And it's not nice. I'm not going to lie. It's not a nice feeling, but you do kind of
No.
try and be a light and just be like, if the soul's there, help them pass over. Like, you know what I mean? Help clear the energy. But yeah, has any stuck out in your mind, Crystal, like a top um haunting paranormal case that you had? Maybe you can talk about, that you don't have to like give too much names, or you can keep the privacy of the person.
Are they interested in like paranormal and supernatural and like cryptids and stuff? Because
I'm
there's
sure. I feel like I know myself. I'm always into the paranormal. I'm sure anybody that's on their path is into the paranormal, because we're always connecting with um the other realms and with guides, with ancestors, with spirits, with whatever it may be. Uh, so yeah, go for it.
okay.
I'd
Okay.
love to hear it as well.
I'll share like a personal death one from myself just to like bridge that gap. My mother passed away and I was with her to the very last moments. It was very hard because, like I said, she has a very younger mentality on top of other mental illnesses. She was a schizophrenic, so she
Right.
would have hallucinations a lot. That's why when I was
Mm.
younger, I wanted to make sure everything that I was seeing and reading upon was very accurate. And that's why now I want to make sure that everything that everybody talks about, like we go through other um, means just to make sure that they get the help, that they need,
They
because I've
need.
seen my mom without help and it was very scary
Yeah.
during that, especially very young and not being in a home. But
Mm-hmm.
before she had passed away, she would talk about the gray lady all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she would see
Right.
the gray lady. And she, like, one time was like yelling, and I would sleep in the same room with her to take care of her. And she was like
Mm-hmm.
confined to a bed. And she was like, the gray lady. Oh no, the gray lady's here. Crystal, I need you to wake up. The gray lady's here. And I'd be like, what? And then I was like so confused because I thought maybe it was like a nurse coming in or something. And I was like half asleep. And I remember one time I started filming it just in case, because I was like, okay, if there is something here, if I catch anything or
It
whatnot,
will
or if,
show up.
yeah, or if there was like a nurse that came in that I missed,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sleep through it, in case of this vital information I needed. I just wasn't getting a lot of sleep. And in one of the videos, I was able to see her eyes like moving around, and I still live, um, like in the same area as her. Well, actually, like I live in the same home as her, but I changed everything completely different.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
closet started having clothes moving in
Right.
in the cabinet when she was talking about the gray lady, and then a photo of me fell over. by
Right.
itself. We do have a cat, but like the cat was laying
Yeah.
next to my mom. And my mom was saying that she sees her all the time and she comes
Right.
more and more. And then dreams are very big in my family. That's why I work with Oniric magic, which I found some fascinating information with my family bloodline very recently. But my mom would have the dreams of her seeing like my grandparents, everyone else that passed away. So,
Hmm.
you know, those are some basic signs I feel like that most people can relate to, like dreams of
Yeah.
those who passed. But when she passed, we had like a little plastic bag on the side of the bed where they were like cotton things for her mouth to try and give her some water since she couldn't swallow, and we would put everything in there. After she passed, like you know, when someone passes, there's like a all the air comes out of them.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
the bag was on the other side. And after that had happened, and I had said goodbye to her, and I had to immediately leave the room, the bag rippled and it rippled, but it didn't make any noise. You know, when plastic
Well,
ripples, it makes a
yeah.
noise and it's like, it was going crazy and it rippled. And I was holding onto the bed. There was no vibrations, but it was like she had passed through.
Right.
And it was just so intense. And then, luckily, I had like some friends there with me because I don't know what I would have done if I was alone, and they all saw it too, and they're like, we got to open up the window for her. So they opened up the window since I couldn't do it, and
Hmm.
they all were talking about how they obviously weren't ever in that same situation, but seeing something like that was amazing for them, and it made them believe in something because of where
Hmm.
she was in comparison to where the bag was. And there's
Yeah.
no breezes or anything else like that. It just, and the way it did it was just amazing.
Wow.
um so that one's kind of like lighthearted, but kind of deep. And I've had some spooky ones. I don't know if like you want to hear like spooky ones. Um,
Yeah, whatever you're feeling good sharing, and thanks so much for sharing that, Crystal. I know it was really personal to you, and I know that your ma's um having a good time in the other realms right now.
yeah, no,
Having a bit
definitely.
of a break from this earth realm, we fucking don't know about incarnating here again, or
No, definitely. I do know like I have spirits in my own home as well. Before, you know, my mom had passed away here, there was an elderly couple that lived here for a very long
right,
time, and they both passed away. And my mom, you know, apparently would have signs from them. My elderly neighbor passed away. Unfortunately, there's been four um, deaths in the woods right next to me.
right,
Very all, you know,
yeah,
there was no foul play involved, but
yeah,
uh, that area has a very weird vibe. But my home is a completely different vibe. It seems for my home, as weird as it sounds, that it's kind of like a little beacon, like a little safe
of
spot to
light,
go to.
yeah,
Yeah. And I'll have like these different spirits go through. And my friends have experienced a lot of things in my home. So normally when they're like, oh, do you want to go like check out this place? You know, well, we can investigate here for a little bit or just something for like them because they're not investigators. They just like to do it.
yeah,
Half the time they just want to stay in my home and investigate in my home because the house will knock in response to them. Or I have like little electronic candles and they'll randomly turn on in like responses and then turn back
wow,
off. Things will move and
wow,
whatnot, or once in a while you could hear a voice. Like I do have neighbors, I am surrounded by neighbors, but when the
yeah,
noises are coming from in my home, you could tell that they're from inside my home compared to the neighbor noises where it's a little bit more muffled. And
yeah,
then same with the voices, the neighbors voices are more muffled, but you could hear them clear, very, very
right,
clearly. And like I said, they'll interact with certain things. I have like little things set up for them. I have like little spirit homes set up like in the corners of my home and like everywhere. And because it
wow,
seems like they like to come in through corners, which makes sense because it's liminal space.
yeah,
So they'll come in through like the corners. So I have like little spirit homes in there, and I'm very open to it. You know, I've only had like one kind of creepy
hmm,
experience, and I shared that on my channel. That's when I got haunted by a stick. So
right,
that was
right,
all my fault and definitely not like me whatsoever. But I got haunted by a pine stick and all my spells, and I think my home spirits were trying to let me know of that. But
right.
you know, whatever that. But it wasn't like scary, like oh my gosh, like oh so negative. I got freaked out because I was like, nothing like this has ever happened in my home. Normally, the spirits are very respectful in my home and they chill. And if they don't like the music, they'll change the music to what they want to listen to. This is different. But oh, I'm wearing. There was just a knock right there. I don't even know if you were able to hear it with my
I
headset.
think
Probably
I
not.
thought I heard something there
Really?
myself. Yeah, just before you spoke, was it?
Yeah, it was right by my
Yeah.
fairy door. So,
I
because I
have
have
a
this
fairy.
on.
I've one out on the balcony, a fairy
Really?
door as well. Yeah, yeah, and same as yourself. I don't mind because sometimes there just be different spirits
Yeah.
passing through here. That's all right. I know when my ancestors are passing through as well.
Yep.
Um, but I remember me and my partner were sitting here one night on the sofa, and we never turned on the light in the sitting room because it's too bright. I
Yep.
like candles, like that's I need like soft light for my eyes, you know. So,
Same.
yeah, I never turn on that big light. Never. We were sitting there one night watching the telly, and next of all, the big light just came on out of nowhere. You could hear the like click, and I just looked at him, and he was like, that's fucking weird. I was like, yeah, yeah, I know. So I just went over, switched the light back off, and I just went over and automatically opened the back door. And I just said, if there's spirits here that isn't related to me or that are not my ancestors, you're not welcome right now. Go. Because I was a little bit freaked out. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like that light is hard to turn on because it's never turned on. So there was no way that it was like half pressed in and then it fully pressed in itself after a few minutes or something,
Mm.
you
Okay.
know? Because I thought of
Mm.
that first. I was like, oh, maybe it was half on. And then I was like, no, you never turn on that light. So it wouldn't be half on, like, you know. But yeah, no, that's really powerful that that knock just came through there and that you have all of them spirits that come in and out and they respect your space.
No, I'm very lucky. I have like an army because I would spend a lot of time in cemeteries and graveyards and I would just hang out with all the headstones, especially if I couldn't make it to school like when I was younger. I would bunk high school just because I didn't want to be there because I was like always in the same clothes and I couldn't shower, so I always felt like I smelled. So I'd always be in the cemetery and I made
Yeah.
friends with like I would read to the headstones and everything that I was reading. And I feel like they come through here too. That way, you know, they weren't forgotten because it was very old
Yeah.
cemeteries. We have more cemeteries in my state than we have city and towns. We have 3,700
Whoa.
cemeteries, and we are only 38 miles one way and 42 miles the other way. I'm not sure what that is in kilometers,
Whoa.
but
That's
very tiny.
a lot of cemeteries. And I'd
Yeah.
say a lot of them are old as
Oh, yeah.
well. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I remember you had an amazing video up there on the cemeteries, Crystal. If anybody's watching and you're wanting to do a little bit of cemetery walk, or you're wanting to go and get a bit of graveyard dirt or something like that, and you're not quite sure, you haven't went and done any walkings like that before in a graveyard, definitely go or graveyard and cemetery
Graveyard, cemetery.
cemetery.
There.
I was
Yep.
trying to think what's the other word that they call it. Cemetery. Definitely go and give that a watch because there is a few things that you should do before you're going into a cemetery or a graveyard. If you're especially wanting to walk with some of the spirits in there and things like that. So definitely go over and give Crystal's video a watch there on that if you're wanting to do some graveyard walkings. Great cemetery. But yeah, this is after being amazing, Crystal, catching up here. Is there any favorite ritual or a blessing, a charm, something that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Oh, yeah. Can I leave a few? Do I have time? Because I mentioned some
Yeah,
last time. And
yeah, of
okay.
course you do. That'd be
So
amazing.
I know some people do get freaked out when they feel like negative energy, since we were talking about like the paranormal and
Hmm.
whatnot, or even just being around negative people or just really bad anxiety. So there's a really old, like little charm that I like to say. I did not make this up. This isn't not mine, so I can't take credit for it. But all it is thrice around, the circle's bound. Sink all negativity beneath the ground. And you say it 3 times and you can envision like a little ball of light going around your feet if you want. Spells don't have to rhyme to be powerful. They don't have to rhyme. You could just say like "be gone" and just clap your hands. You could be sassy with it. You could do whatever. It doesn't have to rhyme. I just personally like rhyming things because it's easier for me to commit to memory, and I like to chant
Mm-hmm.
things. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of them. And then there's another one that I use for like anxiety. So I know I was talking about this before. Like I've even done this on paranormal investigations and just out with groups of people, but this is what it kind of turns into, like a cone of power. But I like to incorporate tapping with like a sing song chant while you're doing the tapping throughout like your body. I'm not going to sing it, but it is earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. I'm sure if you look up those
Wow.
lyrics, you'll be able to find out the song and the way you sing it on YouTube.
Wow.
But you would start by like the first part
Just
tapping on one
happen.
side of your hand. Yep. And then moving
Yeah.
it to the other, to the top of
Yeah.
the head, to the third eye,
Yeah.
underneath the eyes, underneath the nose, the chin, collarbones, and sides, like you're giving yourself a hug, and then just doing it all over. But when
Wow.
people are feeling kind of like just like uneasy for whatever reason
Mm-hmm.
that they are, maybe there's a lot of people and they don't have any walls up and they're just getting drained, or they're getting overwhelmed, or it's too noisy, or they're just freaked out in a space. If it's a paranormal thing, we start doing
Mm-hmm.
that, and everyone always starts off very quietly, and then everyone gets louder and loud, and everyone's basically like singing it at the top of their lungs as we're all doing it together, and it just, and everyone stops at the same time, and it's beautiful, and it's like making a makeshift cone of power in that moment,
Wow.
and you could just
Yeah.
feel the blanket go, and everyone's like, wow, I feel so much better now. So it could be a mixture of the tapping, maybe that works for you and the chanting doesn't. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
the chanting helps you and it helps you
Mm-hmm.
connect and realize how powerful you are. Or it could just be psychological, but either way, it does seem to really help a lot of people. And that's why
Yeah.
I'll share that.
Well,
Um,
no, thanks so much. And it's such a handy thing to do as well.
mhm.
Like, you don't need any tools, you don't need that fancy. And as like you can just do it there, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed or feeling like the energies are draining you right now.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I know you make candles. So I'll do like one more with candles just in case anyone does like candle
Yeah.
magic or candle work. So what I do is I wake up my candles before I use them for the spell. So I tap on the candle to wake it up. If I'm using the candle to bring something to me, I'll roll the candle towards myself, like, while thinking of
Right.
everything. I'll, like, roll it
Yeah.
towards myself. If I'm pushing something away, I'll roll it away from
Out.
myself. Because the main thing is you want the candle. The candle is going to be a home for the spirit of fire. So
Mm-hmm.
fire isn't just the flame that's consuming, that's engulfing, that's making things disappear. It's the symbolism of everything that fire stands for, as the spiritual energy of fire, that passion, that drive, that creativity, sometimes chaotic with the flame going everywhere, sometimes slow and steady. But it's to prepare that candle to be a home for that type of energy, not just lighting it. To me, that's
Well,
how I
yeah.
take it. So if I'm working with like a candle for like maybe something healing and I want to bring healing power to me, I'll coat my hands with like aloe gel first, and then I'll like rub it all in there. I'll wake everything up. I'll like clap my hands a few times to get that movement going, to get that energy going, that kinetic energy, to wake up everything. So the herbs and oils or the plant essence that's on my hand knows it's time to get to work. We're going to work together. We've already connected. We're connecting with each other. If my energy slips at any time, I have the barrier because I'm working with my hands. And
Yeah.
that's where we
Yeah.
give and receive a lot of energy, is through our
Mm-hmm.
hands. So I have that little barrier up right there. So then if I'm doing it for healing, then I like, I'll, after I wake up the candle, I'll repeatedly roll it to myself, or I'll repeatedly roll it in my hands to myself, thinking of everything that I want to bring. You could carve a little sigil in it if you want to, or you could just leave it as is. The main thing is you're connecting with the spirit of fire. You're connecting with the spirit of that candle. You're connecting with the spirit of like the essences on your hands, whether it be oils or just dry herbs or gel. I use aloe gel. But anything like that, you're fully connecting with it, and you're knowing that everything that you're working for is for your purpose, to get your end result done, to put out there what you're looking for, and then you're actually doing the work to bring it towards you. And I feel like sometimes we kind of forget about that. We think we have to light the candle, say the thing, get this herb needs to work with this herb. Okay, all right, we burn it, and now we have to wait for it to come. I feel like
Hmm.
sometimes we get so lost in the aesthetics of how we think witchcraft should look or what our
Hmm.
spells should look like, that we forget that we have so much power in ourselves, and we're not taking that moment to be mindful, to really
Hmm.
understand the who, what, where, and why of
Hmm.
everything that we're doing to get that desired results. And that's part of the reason why I made my channel, to explain the in-depth things behind, so it's not just buzzwords like protection or energy or rosemary's for luck and for mind cleansing. It's so you can actually understand why
Understand.
and where
Yeah.
they came from, like what
Mm.
started these beliefs in the first place.
And would you agree, Crystal, like that the most basic thing that it does boil down to before you even use, say, a candle for protection or abundance, whatever it may be, even a spell jar, whatever you're doing, intention, intention, intention. Do you think intention is the main ingredient into everything?
I
That your
think it's
intention is clear and precise enough
Yeah, I think
before
it's like a
you.
little mix of everything. So you can like do like a money bowl for,
Hmm.
for money, and then all of a sudden you're upset. I did like a little skit video on it. Oh, I didn't win
Yeah.
the lottery, I got more shifts at work, because you just wanted money and you weren't, specific with how.
Specific. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like there is that. I also feel like besides intention, because our actions are what shows things. We could have the
Hmm.
best intentions in hand and do something for somebody, but if our actions don't reflect our intentions, they only see our actions, they don't see the intention. And I think
Hmm.
it's the same for me, how I view things with the universe too. So, even though I state my intention, I make sure that I go through on that action to
Hmm.
reflect everything that I'm putting for my intention. Because to me, if I'm just lighting a candle and wishing for something, or if I'm leaving an offering and wishing for something, but not putting like any full action behind it, like
Hmm.
letting know who I'm leaving the offering for or what the offering is for, then I feel like it just kind of gets lost in an aspect. And then it just gets into this cycle of where people think that they could just take things repeatedly.
Hmm.
And it's with magic and energy, it's a two-way street. You got to show respect, and then you get respect, and you give respect and you get respect back. It's like a little balance of sorts. Does that make sense?
Totally. We were just talking about that yesterday, when it didn't bloody record for us. But we were talking about all magical workings should have a physical action followed up by them
Yep.
because that's how it works. And we were mentioning, well, I was focusing more on how that law of attraction is also followed up by the law of action. We know that
Mm-hmm.
there's 12 universal laws, there's more subsectors underneath them. But to keep it simple, you can't just use the law of attraction and
Yep.
expect it to come in when you're not using the law of action with a
Exactly.
physical action to bring it in, because as we were saying yesterday, as above so below. So if you're bringing it in, you need to ground it in the physical and you need to bring
Mm-hmm.
it into reality. So yeah, taking and following up your workings with physical steps um, is the way to create and bring it into the reality and not just leave it floating in the ethers, as you were saying,
Exactly.
you know,
I
totally.
feel like it's very important for it to have an anchor, because then you're
Hmm.
sending everything out, but you have the backup being like, no, I'm working towards what I actually want, instead of just being like, this is what I want, please give it to
Yeah,
me. You
yeah.
have something to back up, like, this is what I want, this is me taking the steps for this, I'm anchoring it in. You're showing that you're
Hmm.
willing to put in an effort for it, instead of just being like, oh, this happened because I lit a candle. If you were repeatedly thinking about something and putting that out there and doing steps, like if you wanted to, one of my girlfriends was doing a spell to help her lose weight, but she was also
Hmm.
exercising at the same time. If
Yeah.
she just lit that candle and she didn't do anything to help her lose weight or whatnot, or like help her get in shape like how she wanted to be, then she might not have any results, and then she would be upset
Hmm.
and think that witchcraft doesn't work.
Yeah,
It
totally.
helps us hold ourselves accountable
Yeah.
for everything. And that's what
Yeah,
I like about it, because it brings power back to yourself in that way, because it's making sure that you're holding yourself accountable for the things that you do, instead of just letting you get away with. That sounds bad. I don't know how to word it the way I'm thinking of it,
I
but does that
think
make
no,
sense?
I know what you're saying, Crystal. You're saying like you're being in alignment with yourself and having like boundaries and values for
Yes,
yourself. Like
yes.
you're having yourself to answer to, basically, and your
Mm-hmm.
higher self
Yeah.
to answer to, and that's important, you know, because Goddess and God knows that we need more accountability and responsibility right now in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we all took the time to do a bit of self reflection
Oh yeah.
instead of like, you know, projecting our unhealed shit out onto the world would be a better place. But you know, we are preaching to the choir here. We know people that are listening to this podcast or that are watching Crystal's channel are taking the time for accountability, responsibility, self-reflection, self-improvement, self-help, and their growth on their path.
Mm-hmm.
So congratulations to you for doing the work. We know it's not easy, but again, you're doing it for you. It's making you stronger. You know, it's helping you share yourself with the world and your magic.
And you're doing great.
You're
Even if it
doing
may not feel
amazing.
like it, you're doing great. Keep
You're
going.
doing
Keep going.
amazing.
You're beautiful.
Yeah,
Let your beauty shine. Don't hinder yourself. My
let it
accent is coming
shine.
out so bad. I'm so sorry.
Here, it's grand, Crystal. You're after listening to me for this whole podcast. I couldn't have a more bleeding Dublin accent. There's no changing it. There's no changing it in this lifetime, I'm afraid. So fuck it. We'll love what we have and we'll work with it.
Oh yeah.
Again, that's what makes you unique, your accent.
True, but sometimes people can't understand what I'm saying if they mix up the words. So then they're like, "Yeah,
It-
yeah," when I'm asking
Here,
them a
well,
question.
if they can't fucking understand you, Crystal, I don't know how the fuck they're gonna even peak me. I'm telling you now. Oh shit, I forgot actually. If Crystal's putting this on her channel, I'm after being course. Doesn't matter, Crystal. I course on my
Oh no,
channel.
I don't care.
They know it's explicit content. They're all grand about it. There's no children listening to me, so it's all good. Sure, I'm Irish again. It's coursing in uh this incarnation. But yeah, thanks again, Crystal, for coming, and thanks for sharing everything there. Again, I'd like to stay on more, but I'm not taking up any more of your time as I already did yesterday. Maybe we could do a part two down the line or something. But thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for sharing everything with us and with the followers, the listeners, the beautiful witches, wizards, and magical beings that are following along. And remember to go and check Crystal out on YouTube. Crystal, the cottage witch. She has some amazing walk-ins. Show the love, and expand your horizons.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Maybe we get to do this again. I would love
That's
to if I'm
it.
invited again.
That's it. We'll definitely do a round two, a season two there and down the line, and we can have another little get together around the cauldron mic and stir the conversation up. Thank you so much, Crystal, for joining me. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. Gormy and Mahagut, I will be back soon with another series. Slanga Fall, Namaste, Rat the Earth. See you all soon.